business, and we've been real lucky. We came in the '80s, which was a big boom era. We didn't buy. We weren't stupid. We didn't go out. Not intentionally, we weren't stupid. We were just didn't happen to be stupid. In retrospect, we didn't buy a network. You know, we were smart enough to not overpay for that. We didn't buy any of these things that were overpriced.
Didn't buy the rights to baseball or anything like that?
We didn't do any of those things, which we all wanted to do. And every time we look at the... I actually had closed the deal with NBC. I actually had closed the deal with Thornton Bradshaw, who owned RCA, or was chairman of RCA, and I learned a lot in that deal because I woke up and found out what I thought I had bought all of a sudden was a General Electric.
What's the deal with Letterman's deal? Some time ago, Disney supposedly signed him to do some movies. Obviously, he hasn't done any.
Oh, that's right. Well, when we first came to Disney, I know what happened. My son called me up and he said, "Can we go see David Letterman?" He was at Burbank. So I got tickets and we went over to NBC, and I've never seen such a crowd waiting to see a show. Television show. Having been a page, I'd seen about 10,000 television shows. I'd never seen this kind of a crowd. I actually worked the Tonight Show and never saw this kind of crowd. While the show was going on, the announcer and every producer had to stop the audience from laughing and making... So I left and I said to my son, "This is a movie audience. This is definitely a movie audience. We have to make a deal with David Letterman." So I called him up and we made a deal. And after we closed the deal, he reminded me, I really shouldn't say this. He said, "You know, I tested for Airplane." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, don't you remember?" I said,
"The Robert Hayes role?"
"Yes, yeah." So I kind of remembered that. That was a movie we made at Paramount. So I went back and looked at it, called him up and said, he said he said to me, "You do not want to make a deal with me. I am not an actor. This is something you do not want to do." I said, no, I've seen this line. I've seen your show. By the way, it's all been proved by the fact of Wayne's World and all these kind of shows. You could do it, too. Shows at night. I tried to make a deal with all the Saturday night people when that first went on. So I said, no, this is going to work. It's just going to be like Belushi and Chevy Chase. They're going to be lying around the block. He said, "You're wrong. Look at this tape, this test." So I called him and said, "Well, maybe you're right, but let's keep the deal going." And he never would really concentrate on it. He probably knew better than I did. So it wasn't that we had a problem, but we just never got anything going. You know, as soon as we'd have some treatment, it would take me 3 weeks to get him on the phone, and when we pass the treatment, I can get him on the phone right away.
So is Disney out a lot of money as a result of this? Or?
No, a little bit, but he didn't want to take our money. He didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want to make movies. He knew he couldn't make movies, and I made him make this deal, and it didn't happen.
But you just had to have him under contract.
No, I just thought I thought it didn't matter what he did for the first movie. The first movie, all we had to do was put up a sign. I knew we'd have a hit. And actually, we got lucky and made a good movie. Then we had, 8 David Letterman movies in a row. He may have known better than I did.
Now, whose idea is it to get the guy from the Super Bowl or whatever to say, "I'm going to Disney World"?
That actually was my wife's idea. We were opening Star Tours, which is based on the Star Wars characters, and George Lucas and I and my wife and a bunch of people from Disneyland were sitting there with Mr. Yeager and those people that flew around the world with, that little teeny plane. Anyway, Yeager and the woman. This is really bad.
Sally Ride.
Right. No, not Sally Ride. Not Sally
Sounded
Ride.
good, didn't it?
I almost said yes.
You say it authoritatively, you can slide on a lot of these things.
Anyway, the people that had that one engine that traveled around the world, this kind of defines that you're a star for about 5 minutes. Anyway, they travel around the world, and I asked them, after this unbelievable accomplishment, and they were there to help us open Star Tours, and we had a dinner the night before Disneyland, and I asked them what they were going to do next, now that they had achieved their life's goal. And he said, or she said, "Well, we're going to Disneyland." My wife turned to me and said, "Wouldn't that be a good advertising campaign?" So I knew the Super Bowl was about 2 weeks away, and we decided we would pick 5 guys on each team. New York Giants were playing somebody. I should know that too, but I don't.
Denver?
I believe you. I mean, I believe you. You would know better than I would. Anyway, we picked 5 guys, including...
Sally Ride was the Bronco quarterback.
And we pre-negotiated with 10 different people, picked the 10 people we thought could be the 10 most interesting players in the game. Turned out that Phil Simms was the most interesting player in the game, and we did that commercial.
You just won the Super Bowl. What are you doing next? I'm going to go to Disney World.
We've done a lot of athletes. We almost got Ronald Reagan. We came close to getting Ronald Reagan. I couldn't ask him, but it was somebody that I didn't have the courage to ask him. Somebody else asked him. And then what he did was actually...
He's walking out of the White House. His term is over.
Now that you've been president for 8 years, unemployment is this, everything is that. What are you going to do next? He thought that was a little grotesque. However, the next day, he went to USC to give a speech.
You know, it's wonderful. I got all sorts of offers on where to appear first. The Disney people called and kindly asked if I'd do one of their commercials. They wanted to put the camera on my face, and then the announcer's voice would say, "Mr. President, you've just completed 2 successful terms in office. What are you going to do now?" And they wanted me to say, "I'm going to Disneyland." And I told them, "No, I'm going to USC."
Well, they were crazy. So that was better than the spot. That was covered on national television.
Belushi, you were in the process of putting something together with him literally the day he died, right?
Process of unputting together something together. Yeah,
Oh, really?
Well, we had made a deal with him to make a movie, and he wrote the script and a script about, see, what was it about? A wine country in Napa Valley. Maybe the worst script ever written. But we were committed to it. So I met with him and tried to talk him out of it. We spent that week talking about it, and he was very funny and very nice about it. Actually, during that week, he was, and I had another script that I wanted to switch, and I kept meeting with him, and actually the night that he died, I went to meet with him earlier in the night, and he got real serious with me, and he said that he really wanted to do this horrible movie, and that he was going to sue me. I got real nervous. He said that his lawyers would be in touch with me, and then he named lawyers that advertise on television as his lawyers. So I mean, so even in the last...
Wait a minute, don't disparage those people. They advertise within this show.
Well...
This is their time of night.
This is their time. Well, they could have had John Belushi if he'd lived another week. So...
Didn't you want him to do a movie version of The Joy of Sex?
We had bought the... I saw Woody Allen's Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, so I thought we had bought the book The Joy of Sex, which was a pretty dumb move to begin with, but then we owned it. And I met with a lot of people on how to bring this to life, this book. And I thought, well, John Belushi's view of The Joy of Sex could be pretty funny. So I was trying to talk him out of the wine country book about how you grow wine in Napa Valley into The Joy of Sex, from John Belushi's point of view.
Or The Joy of Sex with Ernest and Julio Gallo.
Well, that's where he was heading. So that project didn't happen quickly.
Your wife had an interesting observation after a meeting with him. He left the table or something, and she said, "This is Sunset Boulevard. This is like the movie Sunset Boulevard."
You've done a lot of research here. I'm never coming back. You know too much. And what happened was we had this meeting with John Belushi that night at 10 o'clock at night. I can tell you exactly. It was at 9:30. I'll tell you why I know what time it was, because we were there and we talked about this thing, and he did his joke about suing us and all that stuff, and he kept taking phone calls, which have been memorialized in other books about what he was phoning about, which of course I didn't know, and he had about 8 cheeseburgers lined up there. And it started to get uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable to begin with. He's a big movie star, and I was trying to get rid of The Joy of Sex. That's enough to make you uncomfortable. So I said I was going to leave. I said goodnight to him, And we got that, we walked, this restaurant was upstairs, we walked down the restaurant, down the stairs of the restaurant to our car, and he hung out, he came to the top of the stairs, like Sunset Boulevard, and was screaming at me to come back upstairs to see something on television. And he dragged me back upstairs with my wife to show me reruns of Saturday Night Live, which went on at 10 o'clock on KTLA or one of the local stations. And it was an editorial that he was doing, comedic editorial about legalizing marijuana.
In Europe, in Amsterdam, everybody votes there, and they smoke hash in the streets. And don't tell me it doesn't make a difference. So look, I got this to say, and I'm going to say it. Why am I up here wasting my valuable time telling you this? To tell you the truth, I'd rather be out smoking hash on the street. I could be out smoking hash on the street, but no!
And it was very funny, actually, and we sat there and watched it, and then we said goodnight. He said, no, you got to stay, and we walked back down the stairs, and as we walked back down the stairs, he's staying at the top of the stairs, begging me to come back and watch him in a rerun of Saturday Night Live. And I said, no, I had to go to bed, I had to get up early. And as we were going home that night, my wife said, amazing, it's like Sunset Boulevard. Here's a guy who's not in the show anymore, who's staying at the top of a stair, begging me, telling me that he's still the greatest comedian in the world. And then at 10 o'clock the next morning, I got a call that he had died. So it was like, that was eerie.
Again.
Well, you made it.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Roger. Want to play a little basketball?
Geez, Vic, I can't. I've got to introduce this show. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
You introduce these Disney shows for children now in the fashion that Walt used to. What kind of reaction do you get walking down the street?
Well, I know when I came to Disney, we had to identify the fact that there was a rudder at Disney. And I decided I would host the show. It was on ABC for a couple years, on NBC for 4 years, and now it's on the Disney Channel. And I did host them, and I have amazingly negative reaction in my own home. I mean, amazing.
Children humiliated?
Beyond anything my
Taking to wearing disguises to school?
My son, who's now in college, has finally told me 5 years later that he could not even go to school in the 7th and 8th grade. Not because I was on television, but because I was so bad. So that, he said, I didn't mind that I was on television, but I was such a goofball that he thought it was embarrassing.
Now, I admit that tonight's feature, Mr. Boogedy, is a little weird. It's a family comedy all about ghosts, evil spirits, and a very haunted house. But look at that. The guys in the special effects department here at the studio knew I was introducing Mr. Boogedy. And this is their idea of a little joke. Very funny guys. Pyrotechnics, wonderful, really. Phone book, hot telephone call. Nobody has a magnifying. Okay, flying chair, great. I'm keeping my coffee.
Let's talk about the teacher awards. How do you define the categories? How does somebody get nominated? How do they win?
We are committed to education. Disney is entertainment and education. We thought, I think, that teachers are not given any credit for anything. You know, executives are lionized, movie stars are lionized, athletes, my God, they're lionized. We give awards, we listen to people thank their mothers and their gardeners and their agents to the point that you get pretty sick of it. And teachers are taken for granted. So we decided we would create an award show where you treated teachers like we treat sports stars.
And most importantly, I would like to tell the children of Hobart Elementary School, see you at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and there is a science test.
Impressive list of presenters, but most noteworthy in this case, Johnny Carson, and I'm pretty sure this is his first television appearance since last May when he left The Tonight Show, true? How'd you get him to do it?
I wrote a little note on a thing saying, Johnny, we're doing this Sunday, December 6th, we're shooting it, would you like to be a presenter? And next thing I knew, somebody called me and he said yes.
Will you sit up straight? No talking. Geez, you're in the third row chewing gum. You have to stay 1 hour after this program is over. I've always wanted to do that. All of us in the entertainment business are asked every year to attend a lot of award shows. Most of them are kind of ego massaging, kind of silly. But in my opinion, this is the most meaningful and deserving award show on the...
Folks, the American Teacher Awards shows again on the Disney Channel this coming Thursday night. Our thanks to Michael Eisner of Disney for being with us. Now, one last question. Is there any surefire way, you know, like in a dim light, to tell Pluto from Goofy?
No, there's not.
Thank you. See you later.